Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Friday, September 10th, about 10 minutes after market close here in Jacksonville, Florida. And yes, I'm filling in for Don today. That means I've got the 21 over 21. I'll be doing the big show. I've also got the stocks and the setups that you need to be watching, you need to have on your radar. And additionally, we're going to go over some key levels on the indices here in just a moment as well. So let's get into it, folks. What just happened? Another week close or week finish to the day or the week. Multiple breaks of key moving averages. We're going to look at some of those breaks of moving averages here in a moment when we look at the indices. Performance-wise, G5 down 0.86. The S&P, the Qs, and the Dow all down about 0.75%. Mid-caps and the Russell down about 1%. So not really one index showing relative strength compared to the others per se by the time it was all said and done. Towards the end of the day, everything pretty much finished weak, and so you weren't really seeing some of that relative strength. G5 was actually green and showing relative strength earlier in the day, and that obviously faded. We do have changes to the market state. Short-term pullback, leaders, okay, there are pockets of strength or certain stocks that have acted very well or acted very well today. And then there is a bit of broader weakness just in the broader market, the S&P, sectors, etc. Most stocks having a tough day today. We do have a change to the trend gauge as well. Short term has been moved to neutral, and that is because the Qs are the only index still above the 21 exponential moving average. We also added the small little yellow arrow pointing towards neutral under medium because we now have mid caps and the Dow below the 50-day moving average, the second consecutive close for the Dow below the 50-day moving average. So a little bit more caution. You can see market leaders remains the same. As we mentioned in the market state, leaders are still acting relatively well. Not all, but for the most part, we're seeing some really constructive action. We're seeing gap ups hold, relative strength on days when the market doesn't do well, etc. So some little red flags here. You're seeing the market pull back, break some levels of support, and that is reflected in the trend gauge. So before we get to the charts and go over the 21 over 21, allow me to reference the team here at Revere. This is something I always do, and I always say, but I truly mean it. If you have any questions about any of the stocks I cover, anything I say, you know, a level on the NASDAQ or the S&P, whatever it may be, send me an email. I'd be happy to respond, or you can reach out to anybody here, Dan, Tim, Meryl, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com if you have any questions. If you have questions about, you know, what Revere does, what our strategy is, etc., please feel free to reach out to us. So let's get to the charts, everybody. We're going to start with QQQ, and I'm going to show you, you know, most of these are going to look pretty similar, just finishing near the lows of the day, relatively bad action here. So the Qs definitively breaking the 8-day exponential moving average. That's going to be your pink line there, and it's going to be right around 378, 379. It had been creeping up towards 380. So slice through that, and now with the Qs, we are almost to the 21-day. We were 2% or so above it, 3% or so above it, all in here. And now we come back, we're right to it. We're only about 2% off the 50. So ideally, you really want to see this 375 level hold on the Qs. That's right where the 21 is, and that's also right where this previous resistance was here that we were able to get through on 8/27, which I believe may have been the day of the Jackson Hole meeting. I could be wrong on that. Not sure. That might be all the way back here, but nonetheless, this 375 area important to watch on QQQ. And SPY slicing through the 21, that is going to be the green line that you can see right there. I'm following along with the mouse. Down about 0.5% below it, it's going to be right at like 447.80, 447.60. That's going to be the level to watch there. So I am going to set an alert there just in the event that the S&P can get back through the 21. But really what I want to see from a positive standpoint, I want to see SPY back through 450 and also back above the 8-day exponential moving average. So you can see that's at 449.47. That's what I want to know for SPY to the upside is how are we looking? Are we able to get through the 8? Are we able to get through that 450 area? So that's the levels to the upside I'm looking for on SPY. To the downside, you're going to want to watch today's lows. Obviously, you know, we don't know where we're going to open on Monday. So if we open higher, today's lows become important. If we open lower than today, then you're really probably starting to look here at this 50-day, this 440 area becoming of importance, as you can see there. And for the Qs, The 375 level to the downside, just to clarify here, you want to watch this area. To the upside, it's pretty clear. You want to see 380 closes above 380, back above the 8-day. Also, getting through these 381, 382 highs here would also be an encouraging sign for QQQ. DIA, really one of the worst looking of all of the indices here. Cut through this 347.31 low. That was actually one of the levels I planned to give you all today, and it cut through that right at the end of the day. So not the greatest sign there. I would look for this to possibly bounce, but once again, depending on where we open, if we open higher, you want to make sure you monitor today's low. So that's 346.68 or 346.57, excuse me. So I'm going to set an alert there at this moment. And to the upside, I'm also watching. I want to see DIA get back above 350. So this level was important. We sliced through it. You also had this 348 over here. It wasn't really able to give it much support. So if DIA isn't able to get any upward momentum going, then you start having these lows down here. You start looking at the 200-day. But ideally, DIA is able to get back over 350, over the 50 and the 21. That's what you want to see to the upside here on DIA. It's been a laggard for the better part of the last 2 or 3 weeks now. IWM holding up better than MDY, sitting right on the 50-day. You want to see that level hold this 50-day moving average area. It's right around 221, 222. And then below that, you do have the 200 starting to catch up. You're starting to get all of these moving averages converging as this move is starting to be fully digested here on small caps, but sitting right on the 50-day. Would like to see it get back above the 21 and the 8. That's going to be really the 225, 226 area would get my attention on small caps to the upside. To the downside, I'm watching this 220 level, watching today's lows, the 50-day moving average. And lastly, for the indices here, NDY slightly below the 50-day, finishing near the lows of the range, but same story. The lows of today become important. And then you're looking at the same kind of situation as I just described on IWM. I want to see MDY get back above 500 here, the highs of these last 3 or 4 days. That would get my attention to the upside. Obviously, I'm watching the lows of today to the downside, and then you start having some of these lows that here come into play, these 480 area pretty much. So that is pretty much it for the indices. I do want to show you one quick thing before we go to the 21 over 21. Today, TLT week, although it was an inside day after a strong day yesterday, right here with all of these moving averages converging, and also UUP, which was kind of slightly down this morning, finished strong, but right into all of these moving averages slash some resistance. So makes for an interesting launchpad into next week as to which direction some of these variables and indicators are going to go. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight to the 21 over 21. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is the name that came off, and that is Square. You can see this name is breaking down, not able to hold up at the 50, not able to hold up at the 21, and now this 250 level, really not even acting as support. So not great action from Square. These payment companies, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, have been in a little bit of trouble recently. Alex even mentions that on the podcast, so maybe check that out this weekend for some further detailed analysis on this group. But Square coming off, and the star of the day, Affirm, going on a massive gap, followed or subsequent to a previous massive gap on an announcement with Amazon, gapping up huge on earnings today, actually trading more shares than they did on the Amazon day. And I said this to Don and Alex, this is something that you really want to pay attention to here. Traded nearly double the IPO volume both today and the Amazon gap up day. You don't see that very often, where a stock trades, for one, more than the IPO day this soon after, and two, double the IPO day's volume. You just don't see it happen a ton. So I would take notice of this volume. I mean, this is nothing to scoff at. I mean, this is plus 1,000% volume on 2 days within about 10 trading days of each other. So Affirm added to the 21 over 21, also added to Grotection today as well. ALB, this is a lithium play, ran up and touched 250 and reversed lower today, still holding on above the 8. A strong trend here with these lithium names as well. Not that ALB is strictly lithium, but it has certainly benefited from that group's move. AMT, bouncing off of the 21 today and closing above it. This real estate trend continues to trek higher, even though it's had some tumultuous days in the last couple of weeks. XLRE, the real estate ETF, continues to kind of trek along. AVTR, really nothing to say about this one other than incredible run, respecting the 8-day and the 21-day, really since it got above 35. AMBA, this is another name that's owned in Grotection here, acting very well, even finished the day, I believe, slightly green, if that's updating correctly, but really good follow through here on AMBA after gapping up to this 137 level, getting through that, getting through 140. And now you've got the 8-day that's almost caught up to the pivot. So great action on AMBA. When I say to the pivot, I mean this 137.21 area here. CMG continues to consolidate and hold on after its big gap up, continues to look perfectly fine. Costco, strength continues, respecting the 8-day, respecting the 21, since it got through this area here, this 389. Datadog, another one owned in-house, finished very poorly today, along with most other growth stocks, with the exception of Affirm and a few others. But really poor finish today, but a strong move this week to bounce off the 21 here with volume, and then have volume the next day as well. I would watch this one closely as this 21 keeps moving higher, the 8 keeps moving higher. The 21 is pretty much caught up with the close of the gap days, this 136 area. So although it's been a little bit wonky in this area at times, it's still continuing to trade like a leading stock and respecting the 21 and the 8. That's all you can ask out of it. A few more here. DraftKings, a laggard today, but still respecting the 8-day, moving higher. We've cleared the 60 level. And now we're going to watch and see how this one plays out. You see that 21 quickly catching up as well. Just last week, I think around this time, the 21 was down here around 53, 54. Now it's approaching 58, 59. A few more D names here. Docs, also owned in-house, just like DraftKings, just like Datadog, acting very, very well. Not even, I mean, bouncing off the 8 while it is a little bit volatile and staying above it today. And DVN, very, very close, just slightly below the 21, so not taken off, just only a couple of cents here. A nice little consolidation after a big run up to 30. We'll be looking and expecting this one to get it back above the 21, just about a 0.5% or so below it. Today being the first real close that's had below the 21 since the strong move up here, as you can see. So last of these D's here, Dexcom, also acting very well, respecting the 8 and the 21 since the gap, as you can see, still continuing to respect the 8-day moving average, their exponential moving average. FTNT, another name that continues to grind higher in the cybersecurity space, although this sector has been a little bit weak recently, just over the last maybe week or so. So maybe starting to see a little bit of consolidations in some of these names. Maybe you start to see some leadership shift around too. I've got a name we want to look at towards the end of this video as well. InMode, nothing wrong with this name as well. Just came back and tested the 50 here and has never looked back, respecting the 8 ever since it got above it. As you can see, really strong move from InMode with volume, nothing wrong with it, still above the 8 EMA and the 21. Lending Club, same story. At least it's, you know, you do start to see this 8 EMA start to turn over, which is not the greatest sign, but holding up near this 30 level, once again, you're acting well after a big move, continuing to move higher, respecting the 21. You want to see that trend continue here on Lending Club. And just a few more. Net, owned in-house, one of the top leading stocks, respecting the 8 and the 21 here. You can see it sliced through it a few times, but just kind of consolidating up here as it's after a strong move with some volume going back to the beginning of this month. Nvidia was strong today and actually finished strong, but really didn't give much back when the market started to pull back. You can see this one kind of consolidating here at the 8-day really nicely as this 21 continues to catch up as well. And Upstart, the last of the 21 over 21 that is owned in-house, down today, but still acting very much like a leading stock. Nothing wrong with this name And last couple of names here, ZI, hanging on above the 21. This actually looks like an attractive risk reward level on this name, in my opinion. ZIM, this is a shipping company acting very well, very, very, very strong trend at the moment. And the last name here, Zscaler, very poor close along with the market. However, it did hold up above the 21. So they did report earnings. The numbers were fine, it appears, but not a great reaction. And, you know, now we're only about 1.5% above the 21. So keep an eye on this one. This has been a leader. It has gotten a little bit extended to the upside here, but now has earnings behind it, getting close to the 21. So let's go to a couple of those stocks and setups you need to have on your radar moving forward. And the first one is going to be Lulu. I already covered Affirm. I would say for me, that's number one at the moment. And the reason I like Lulu today is it initially opened up, kind of floundered around the 422, 423 area for a little bit and then undercut this low. However, while the market pulled back throughout the day, Lulu ended up finishing pretty strong. So overall, I felt like this was a really good reaction from Lulu. Although it didn't hold the gap like we saw with Affirm per se yesterday, the fact that it respected this 415.34 level is important to me. I think that if you see the 8-day start to catch up and maybe it taps the 8-day, which just so happens to coincide with this 415 area, might not be a bad buying opportunity. But good action from Lulu today, good relative strength. A few more names to keep at the forefront of your radar here or of your watch list. Snowflake, a very nice uptrend. You can see the way it's starting to respect the 8, especially here the last 10 days. Got through that 300 level, some big time volume. Keep this one on your watch list. You might say that looks a little too extended for me or a little too vertical. That's fine. Wait for a pullback. Wait for something that fits your style. But this is a strong name. Another name that was very strong today, finished relatively towards the bottom of the range as the market got weak. Unity Software, same story. You can begin to see where it's resuming an uptrend. The 21 is angling higher. It's respecting the 21 and the 8. So Snow and Unity and Lulu. And then two names that are a little bit smaller. Sprout Social. This is a software company. I've talked about them before that helps you manage and engage your social media efforts as a company from a marketing, advertising standpoint, etc. So a very interesting company. The chart tells me it's a leading stock. And then another name that I covered yesterday as one of the 5 stocks that you need to know, the 5 standout stocks, ASAN, although it finished at the bottom of the range here, did get through 100 today. It's extended. After earnings, it had a gap up type of reaction and has subsequently gone from about 78, 79 to over 100 in a matter of about 5 or 6 days. So this one might need a little bit of a breather, maybe allow some of those moving averages to catch up, but nonetheless, a very strong stock. And then a couple of sectors that are actually maybe starting to set up a little bit. Keep your eye on old XOP here. As these moving averages start to converge, it may not be ready yet, but I do see the 21, the 50, and the 200 all starting to kind of get close together here. It could take another month or two before you really ever saw these converge. But something that caught my eye is this orange line, this green line, and this black line starting to kind of angle towards each other here. And then a very similar type of setup to some degree on XME, but more particularly FCX. So you can see the same type of deal happening here. Perhaps, not necessarily ready, not a leading stock at the moment, but you see all these moving averages beginning to converge together as it digests this move that FCX and a lot of these material stocks had last year. But the main thing I want to talk about in relation to XME and FCX is the steel sector, because that's been the strongest. So on NUE here, this is the leader of the group. You can see NUE was up big this morning, rejected essentially at the 21. It got through it, but came back down. Watch this 111 level to see if it can continue to hold. You can see it essentially held here on the 9th yesterday. But this 50-day is beginning to catch up on NUE. If you're going to watch one name, I'd watch this one. It has the volume, it has the leadership characteristics for the group that I would want to pay attention to, and that's why I own this steel stock in my beta test portfolio for that reason. Not acting exactly how we would want it to, but keep an eye on that 111 level. Watch and see if this 50-day can begin to catch up to that 111 level as well. Some of the other names in the group, STLD, same story, rejected today. And in a similar capacity, you can see how the 50 is beginning to catch up to these previous areas of resistance or previous highs. Same story with Nucor. Something I want to keep an eye on as these begin to consolidate, at or around these highs here, around this level for STLD, around 110 to 115 for NUE. I would keep an eye on that for those to begin to set up as well. And then a couple of the other names here, TX, sitting relatively right on the 21, maybe slightly below it. A couple more, AA, which has gone off and become the leader of the group. These steel stocks, they tend to kind of, it seems to be a revolving door of which one wants to be the leader. It was TX, now it's AA. And then you've got the two laggards of the group, MT and X. So just one area to keep your eye on, not a leading sector per se at this moment in time, but an area that's doesn't look horrible in all the components of the sector itself. So I believe that is going to wrap it up today for me, everybody. Thank you for listening to the big show, or my rendition of it, and the 21 over 21. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you all on the podcast and next Monday. So thanks, everybody. Have a great one.